All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Sermon podcast. Taping this on a Monday evening. Evan Sowards is here as he is at this time every single week, but he's also, for the folks on youtube.com/Chase Sermon podcast, a new view behind him. He has pivoted. I don't know if he's in the same room. He's moved around. He's had some wall art. He's got Robin Williams. He's got Spider-Man. He's got Iron Man.
You could just say the Avengers. You can knock that one down real fast.
Oh, is that? Okay. Well, Now we all know, folks, that Chase and the Avengers and the whole comic book thing does not come naturally to me, because I was not going to piece that together until you said something. So I appreciate that, Evan. Are you what's happening to the room? Are you investing in the video format?
No, not really. I mean, I guess just by accident, I guess, right? Because this is a much better backdrop than my bed. But no, I originally was like, hey, I'll put my computer desk in the room, and then the girlfriend can have the rest of the room. And eventually, I just said, no more of that. No, but to be honest with you, it's such a weird micro thing. But the AC was right here where I had the only place I could fit my desk. So whenever I had to do anything, if I also wanted to not be hot because it's LA, I would just have this AC on my face. So we kind of swapped things up. It made more sense.
That would be weird, just the AC working next to an AC unit like that. I was wondering how that worked for you. I just was like, do you just get bruises all day because you don't know it's right next to you, so you just smack it when you're moving out of there?
You would think you'd love it, and I would love it normally, but it was there. But yeah, and in fact, when I used to record, I just would put my desk against that wall. So
interesting
for the podcast listeners. Too bad. So yeah, I mean, basically, I thought it was a nice switch up.
There you go. Also here, returning to the pod after some time away, Laurie Fitzpatrick. Laurie, good evening. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a beautiful Monday here in wonderful Miami. I'm a little jealous though of that AC unit you had, because it's 100 across the board every single day here. So I would love an AC unit. I have to turn my fans off so the sound isn't in my mic, and then I'm sweating halfway through podcasts. So yeah, it sucks. But otherwise, my Monday is great. How about you guys? Good?
Doing good.
Not too bad. Last semester of grad school starts back in the middle of this week. Tennessee football's back next week. Very excited about that. Falcons are technically playing tonight against the fourth stringers with the Jets, and I can't do it. There's some real sickos who are diving into the tape on Falcons Jets tonight, but I can't do it. I'll watch when I need to and divvy that up tomorrow, but I can't do the preseason games. I've tried for years. I don't know. I think it's a little different when you have a number one overall pick, or you have a new quarterback, and it's I'll watch the Desmond Ridder snaps and stuff like that. But outside of that,
you have a new first round.
No, we don't.
Well,
no, Ridder, he's we'll see. He's a third rounder, and not a franchise guy. A little different when you have Trevor Lawrence and then Trayvon Walker in back-to-back years, right, Laurie? You just how much excitement is there, I think, in Jacksonville, that I'm just so curious about, because you have just the season from hell last year with Urban Meyer and company, and then it just seems like, reading the reports and reading the offseason reports and the optimism, everyone's just feeling good with Doug Peterson in there, and just having an adult in the room who knows how to work, has just a great track record of working with quarterbacks, and you invested the number one overall pick in the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. I mean, are the vibes pretty strong right now in Jacksonville?
Well, for starters, preseason Jacksonville football is the best time every year. Because it's does it really count? And we could win, type of feeling in Jacksonville.
There's hope.
Yeah, there's hope, right? You get to kind of see okay, who's our depth chart players, and it's basically any team that's in the rebuild mode. Preseason is kind of fun. You get to kind of see where you're at, and you have a new coach, so you could see kind of how the offense is being put together and the rapport. But when you're in rebuild mode, that preseason, when one thing goes wrong, then everything kind of comes down on you. oh, this guy's going to be inaccurate. Maybe this player isn't cut out to be here type of stuff. So there's definitely a lot of overreaction. But in all, it's been really fun. It's been a cool ride so far, especially with Doug Peterson back there, like you're saying, working with Lawrence and seeing the tight ends getting involved and seeing a really good 50-50 in terms of like running, like rushing and passing. There's definitely a good balance there. Last year it was like, okay, let's just make Trevor Lawrence throw the ball a million times a game and put everything on his shoulders.
Right.
So it's good to have Peterson back there, throwing the ball to Etienne in the backfield and James Robinson and running it up the gut and on a lot of different variations in terms of the run game.
I mean, you made the Falcons look like world beaters last year. I remember how much fun that was because that season was not fun whatsoever for me this past year, Laurie. And that game was a lot of fun in Jacksonville. And Trevor Lawrence was, that was running for his life. Just no run game whatsoever in that one. That was another just brutal where what is the plan in Jacksonville? You also got the rare CJ and EJ backup situation that you just don't see very often. CJ Beathard, EJ Perry.
Yeah, that was interesting, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, I think there was something where like the Eagles wanted EJ, and somehow, the Jags got him. They just got rid of Jake Luton, which was good because he looked terrible. So yeah, I got the CJ and EJ. There are some people that kind of wish Minshew was still the backup though. But like he said, he doesn't take number twos, so he's number one only.
That is his thing.
And now he's number two. So
well, not in his mind. That man is like, I'll sleep in the parking lot. I will lock out QB1 if I have to. I'm gonna do whatever I need to do to get to be QB1. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Gardner this year. Evan, your 49ers though. You had some running back stuff. Trey Lance still playing well. You at least get to watch Trey Lance play football for the first time in a long time. It's an exciting time if you're a Niner fan. I mean, Niner Twitter is forever in a state of just chaos. And you being one of the leaders of said chaos, I appreciate your service in that regard. But what's going on with the running backs? What is concerning you at the moment there?
Well, I mean, like the whole 49ers situation has been pretty fun. The offseason has been pretty cool. The defensive line is looking like it's going to be absolutely dominant. I do think the 49ers are going to have the best defense in the NFL this year. I've said it before and been right about it. I'm expecting it again. They just look unstoppable. What's really, like, we joke about, the 49ers drafting running backs, but like what's really interesting to me is like there was Jordan Mason, undrafted free agent, naturally, the progression of the Shanahan running backs, right? The starter gets injured. The backup gets injured, and then of course the dog whines in the back.
That was a good call. We didn't make it 10 minutes. He was ready.
Right.
The cue was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But basically the 49ers running back situation is like we've had Trey Sermon, who we drafted in the second round, right? It's supposed to be this starting capable guy. Doesn't play last year essentially at all. Basically is in the doghouse. Has looked really bad in camp and and also in this preseason game. He was missing holes. He was missing the wrong running lanes, missing blitz pickups. And a lot of the people that I trust think that there's a good chance that he doesn't make the roster.
Whew.
So if you're keeping score now, the 49ers drafted Joe Williams their first year with Kyle Shanahan. One of the biggest busts the 49ers have had drafted in a long time. Also, Reuben Foster as well. But they draft Joe Williams. He doesn't pan out in any way, shape, or form. He doesn't even make an NFL team afterwards. I mean, he's just out of the NFL bad. And, that guy in that situation, of course, my dog is now literally pulling the light down because, of course, he is. It's a puppy. Can you see him? Look at this little dog.
Look at Milo. Look at Milo. He's
if
just
I wasn't
being a
showing
puppy.
so much leg with my short clips, I would have kept that angle. No, but basically, Trey Sermon has looked terrible, for what you expect out of this guy. And so you have a running back room that Jeff Wilson is the guy that's been there forever. He started out undrafted free agent himself, and he's kind of cemented a position guaranteed. You have Tyrion Davis-Price, who they drafted in the 3rd round. A lot of people like. And JaMychal Hasty is kind of like really like special teams, has a place, is just there all around. But Jordan Mason's undrafted free agents coming in and looking really good. He plays really well in preseason. And my dog's jumping around on the couch right now. This is outstanding. I wish you guys could watch. But Jordan, if he takes that roster spot, there's no room for Trey Sermon. And if that happens, that's it's an embarrassment of riches that the 49ers are that good at the running back spot, but I don't know, man. How many misses does John Lynch get?
Well, when you look at this room, now you have me curious. So it's Jeff Wilson, Elijah Mitchell, Trey Sermon, and you just drafted a running back in the 3rd round this year from LSU, Tyrion Davis-Price, Jordan Mason, he just mentioned, and then JaMychal Hasty. So how many are they carrying? Like,
Well, Elijah Mitchell, I didn't mention because he's like the de facto starter. Right. So it'll be Elijah,
who you took in the 6th round.
Right. Yeah, of course, because they drafted Trey Sermon. He didn't pan out, so they get the guy that
Yeah. The rule here is just draft 2 every time.
Going back to Mike Shanahan would draft. I think he drafted like 8 running backs in his tenure with Denver. So it's in the family. But I don't know. I thought it was such an interesting concept that you really expect. I don't know. Is it Ohio State running back, right? Like you expected a lot out of him, and he might not make the roster. That's pretty insane to me.
But it's not a worry, right? Like it's like one of the things where Kyle Shanahan's a lot of things, but one of the things we're not concerned about ever with San Francisco is like, well, what's the run game going to look like this year?
But I don't look at Kyle here. I look at John. And who knows? Maybe that was Anthony Lynn saying, "Hey, I don't like your running backs. Draft Tyrion Davis-Price and Jordan Mason. It will sign." He's new in the regime, obviously with, I can't remember, Bobby Turner out, retired. So who knows? But how many running backs can you draft that don't pan out before you go, well, all the undrafted free agents have looked great.
I don't know. That would be a good case study of trying to figure out. I wonder what Kyle's answer to that would be, though, is why it seems like his guys that he just takes a flyer on late work out and the ones that he actually invests in and think are going to be good just aren't.
I can tell you exactly.
Okay.
Well, we're gonna draft. We're gonna draft whoever we need. We're gonna give the team the best chance of to win. And I'm going to do, I can't guarantee at any given time that any running back is going to make the roster. But we're going to just, like that's what he's going to say. I don't know. Some unnecessary thing. I don't know. Long story short, though, who knows if Trey Sermon even makes the roster. 49ers have looked really, really good so far at the positions of need. It's going to be a strong year for them.
Are you just as high on the Niners right now, Laurie?
Yeah. I mean, I really like their defense. Obviously, I think that it's hard for them to get a running back because they're more of a passing, like they're pass first type of offense. Debo works so well in that case because they're not expecting it because he's so versatile. So it's like to get somebody that would fit perfect in the offense would have to just be somebody they didn't plan for who happens to just work out, honestly. So that's probably why the undrafted free agents do well, just because like he probably isn't good at determining, which type of back would be good for my offense because maybe he's just really focused on the pass. But running backs nowadays are, really good ones are far few in between, really, just because of how all teams are pass first. The most successful ones seem to be the ones that can run guys over. They're the only ones that are really valued and seen as those like they're the only ones that are like feared. and not a ton of guys have that speed nowadays because they'll just like throw them in the slot, run over the middle,
Mhm.
So it's like, when was the last time we had like a Chris Johnson in the league?
Yeah.
They're returning kicks, and that's about it.
Raheem Mostert, if he could ever stay healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you got whatever Jacksonville's doing, where they're like, well, what if we just made Travis Etienne like a full-time receiver / running back? What?
That was not Doug Peterson.
Mhm.
No, but you look at that. James Robinson was the most successful, and he's undrafted too.
Yep.
So I am curious. So as a 49ers fan, I wish I had I feel like I'm always saying as a 49ers fan. No, but really though, I like have a passionate hatred for Trent Baalke. And so in that nature, just in general, I'm very interested in what happens with the Jaguars, right? Like you're taking Trayvon Walker's really interesting to me because I saw people say the same thing about Aldon Smith and him being right about Aldon Smith, and I look at the Travis Etienne pick, I can't pronounce his last name. And you say the same thing. You're like, well, James Robinson was like one of the most exciting, like, diamond in a rough players of the season. As covering the Jags, looking at them, like, what are your thoughts on these kind of swing for the fence moves?
Well, I was really pissed about the ETN pick. I was really angry about that. It didn't make any sense to me. I don't know if that was a bulky pick there. I know that Trent Baalke definitely was Trayvon Walker. He's more of like that D-line evaluator, which he seems to be pretty good at. I mean, that was a shot like a shot in the dark kind of, because Trayvon Walker had 6 sacks, and it's like, how do you take a shot on a guy that only has 6 sacks? Like, that's just wild. And so it's before they all decided, okay, we're going to go with Trayvon Walker, the end of last season. That's why all of the Jaguar fans had to clown emojis on their avies on Twitter, and they wore clown outfits because they hated Trent Baalke. So everybody in the Jacksonville community felt how you feel, Evan. Honestly, it was like that, but it was just like people were telling him to leave the position. They were standing outside of the stadium. They were recording themselves saying, "Yo, Trent, can you just leave our organization?" Yeah. And he would just like laugh it off. And
I get it.
We got to a point where it was just like, okay, like, what are these fans supposed to do now? They're not being heard. They're not gonna fire Trent because Trent was using the whole argument as it was Urban. It wasn't me. It was Urban. That's the only reason why. So,
well, that's what
the owner. Well, yeah, and I think
that's
everybody.
A very good thing. It's the coach, not me. The next thing you know, the coach is fired. And he's stuck.
Yeah, and it was funny because Ian Rappaport was like, saying all these leaks were happening, and everybody was just tagging Trent like, "Oh, that's your leak, right?" Because it just seemed like he was the rat in the organization. He was like telling everything to Urban and kind of blowing it all up, and then Urban blew it up himself. But It was just like he kind of set that, like he hit that first domino in a way where it was just like, we don't know what he's doing. But now Trayvon Walker is actually doing well. Like he looks really dominant. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really like a breath of fresh air, and they must have looked at each other as soon as that very first snap happened against Las Vegas in that Hall of Fame game. They must have looked at each other like, thank God he actually turned out to be like decent, because that was really like a shot in the dark. So
what about Etienne? Is that am I safe drafting him in fantasy this year?
No.
Yeah, no, I think so.
Are you in on Etienne still, Laurie?
Well, I wasn't at all. Okay. Like I didn't like that pick at all. Like I really like James Robinson.
Yeah.
But all of their backups seem to be terrible. So
Snoop's not performing pretty well.
In the last game, yeah, he did. But like before that, anybody that they had just didn't seem to really do even half as well as James Robinson. So, but then when you look at Etienne, they seem like kind of similar. But these last few weeks that Etienne has gotten snaps, he's looked really good. He's definitely he's had some missed tackles at the line of scrimmage. After the line of scrimmage, he's gotten a couple of first downs. I think he's looked really well. It's going to be hard for them to balance, which guy is going to get the ball. It's really going to be a hot hand type of thing.
Yeah.
Whoever is doing well. And I think there's a good chance that ETN can prove his worth to kind of stay in until maybe he only has like a 3-yard gain, and then they throw James Robinson in. We'll see what he does. If he doesn't do well, go back to ETN type of thing. So I think he is worth the pick.
Yeah, and I will say, like, the way James Robinson plays, like, I feel like having someone to compliment him is a very good thing.
Yeah.
So,
it does, like, he does seem like momentum helps him though. So like if you take him out too soon, then he won't perform at all. So you kind of have to like go through the motions maybe in the first quarter, like let him play it out, because like his vision, like he works up to it almost every game. It's like he never really comes out of the gate firing. Like he kind of works like maybe third down, he just out of nowhere, breaks a good 15 yards, but he never breaks any really far. Like he's never super explosive where he breaks a 40-yard run. That rarely happens.
He's
I don't
like a
think
67 Chevy. He's got to get warmed up.
Yeah, and then he's never gonna break one like for a good 60 yards. Like ETN though, he might. So, yeah.
Interesting. Well, speaking of ETN and the Jacksonville Jaguars, well, actually, no. Before we get there, before we do our AFC South preview, quickly on Tom Brady, who is back playing with the ones this week. The planned absence is over. The speculation, I guess, is over. He had a planned vacation with Giselle, and Brady, it does not appear, is going to be on The Masked Singer, as much as we all hope that would. Like, what I am personally hoping for is both are true. Is that
Did you see the tweet?
Say it again.
Did you? I don't know. Did you see his tweet like 4 sequends ago?
No. What did he just tweet?
Literally, I was waiting for you to finish because I thought that's what you're talking about.
No.
So he just tweeted, quote tweeted his clothing brands, underwears brands.
Yeah.
It's like a guy in his underwear riding a motorcycle doing a wheelie. And he's like, wasn't on The Masked Singer, but I was wearing a mask. And it was like, I guess implying that he was on the motorcycle, which obviously he wasn't. And it's Brady underwear.
Are we sure Brady's going to be good at commentary? Are we sure we're ready for post retirement?
So first and foremost, let's just get it out of the way. Tom Brady has nothing to do with any of his social media. He has one of the best social media teams I've ever seen. I mean that sincerely. Their content's incredible, but he has nothing. He's not tweeting this stuff. He's not that funny. A guy like Tom Brady is not sort of like quipping out tweets like, "Oh, this one's about to be a banger." Like he has an entire team, and I am not excited for when the day comes that he has to be in front of a camera, because I imagine he's going to be bland as hell.
That's what I worry too. I mean, the money is just so ridiculous for what he's getting for Fox and this investment and this idea. It's so strange because, I mean, I think Sean Payton would be a lot better on TV, and I think he'd be better at this particular game. Like, you just go up and down the list, like even McAfee, whoever. Like, there's just a lot of guys I'd probably put in front of, Tom Brady's going to be fun. Drew Brees was not good. Like, we listened to some Drew Brees playoff games, and I think didn't he do Bengals Raiders? I seem to recall. He's bland, and he's just not. Maybe it takes time, but it's not there. But it makes you appreciate guys like Chris Collinsworth a lot more, because he's just so. Oh, Laurie's not a Chris Collinsworth person. He's my favorite. I really enjoy Chris Collinsworth.
I play too much Madden to like him.
Interesting. Oh,
I don't know if you guys ever played like Madden, but he was the most annoying Madden like commentator or whatever.
I'm not gonna lie, I've never in my life been able to get into Madden or NBA 2K. I love video games to play all the time, but for that stuff, for some reason, it just never scratched that itch, I guess I would say.
Spent a lot of time on Madden back in the day. Madden.
Yeah, so you kind of know what I mean. I don't know. It's just like his voice. Like, it has nothing to do with how much value he adds. Not that at all. Because he does add value, but in terms of like really good commentators, Tony Romo is awesome, I think. And I did not like Tony Romo. Like, I grew up in Philadelphia area. The Cowboys where like if you like the Cowboys, you're pretty much not allowed in my family's house.
Mhm.
So I was never like a Tony Romo like person, but him being on the broadcast, like, oh my god, he's awesome. Like he predicts everything, and it's like exactly what he says.
Well, I think we're like by and large, I think the NFL is in a really good place commentary wise. If you go up and down the list of like with Thursday Night Football, I mean, I don't understand how Thursday Night Football has hired as many people as they have. Like, isn't Richard Sherman involved in this, Evan? And you just go up and down the list of all the people who are like appearing on the sidelines and doing work for this Amazon Thursday Night Football. It's pretty wild. You go through it and you're like, Kirk and Al will be great. You look at Sunday and you go through Greg Olson, I think is really good. And I think Greg Olson's probably going to be a star as a color commentator this year. He's going to be really good. I like Burkhardt a lot. Obviously Joe Buck and Eggman on Monday Night Football will be good. I don't know. I think I'm pretty happy by and large with just about every broadcast. The one that I don't think I think Greg Olson will be better than Tom Brady, and it just doesn't matter because Tom Brady is going to get this opportunity, and I don't think he's built for it. Like Peyton Manning's built for it. If Peyton Manning wanted to be the lead color commentator in the NFL, he could do that and be really, really good at it. But I don't think Brady's wired the same way. Like I'm looking at Brady versus Manning next to me in that book, and just everything you read about Brady, it just doesn't signal.
Let me make it as I'll say the things that I don't know that you would or could say.
Oh no.
Peyton Manning is hilarious. He's a funny guy. He's laughed at his own expense. People, he's laughed at he's got a big head jokes. He's laughed at being the goofy older brother. He's gone on SNL. He's got a great personality. He's hilarious. Tom Brady comes into the NFL, gets $100,000 worth of plastic surgery, and has single-handedly tried to like just materialize a life that was not real. Like everything about him is fake. His social media team, his plastic surgery, like all of it. I mean, the only thing that is real about Tom Brady, I think, is that competitive drive and like hard work. Like that man is motivated to win. I think he's the most competitive person on earth next to like the late Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. But like, I don't want that guy in front of a camera. I don't care what Tom Brady says. Like, I don't know, even Kobe and all of his like fire and like, you know, motivation that he had to win and succeed and all things like that. Kobe was funny, nice guy, fun to be around, right? Like,
but he was going into like directing where he was like, I'm going to be behind the scenes. I think Kobe knew that he would not have the personality for inside the NBA. He knew that
Michael
Shaq and him were
Jordan
wired
and Tom
differently.
Brady are like the same person. Like, I don't want to hear Tom Brady speak about sports. I don't want to hear Michael Jordan, right? Because they're both the same. They're like, I will work harder than everyone. Why can't you be as good as me?
Well, I think it's just going to be so careful. They're so brand conscious. And I think that's something you can't be in this kind of role, is like that brand conscious. That I think Tiger's like this. I think it's just, I just don't see that evolving. I don't see Tom just opening up that side of himself. I don't see that personality coming out, but we could be wrong. Maybe he will change when he gets in the booth, but
maybe he wants to. That's why he took it.
I think the money might be I don't know. It's like one of those things where they keep throwing money and they're like, Tom, what about we just give you this? What if we give you this? What if we give you this? And he's like, all right, fine, I guess
there has to be a line though somewhere. Like his wife makes so much money.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, if
he makes so much, they both do.
Yeah, she makes way more than him though.
Yeah, but I mean, like they could literally, like, I don't understand that. I mean, that's an entirely different podcast, but I don't understand the mentality of making as much money as you make and having Giselle making and like having the family that they do, and they all go, like Brady's like, one more year. There is 0.0% chance that the Bucs win the Super Bowl this year.
Oh, that's definitely not true.
No.
You can't say that.
No,
I thought that before the injuries, and
you're
now
really
after
out on
the
Bucs this year.
No. The end? Are you kidding me? They just lost two of
the offensive line stuff is concerning right now.
Yeah,
that is
concerning.
With Jensen and company. Yeah, it's concerning.
Tom Brady is a statue.
I mean, Tom Brady's getting the ball out quick though. Like
Tom Brady's and he makes the decisions pre-snap. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I listen. I agree that the points you were making are very right, but like, there are too many powerhouse teams this year. Tom Brady and some pre-snap motions are not going to get this done this year.
The NFC's open. Like if it was the AFC and the Bucks were having to try and get out of the AFC with the Bills and company, I would probably share that sentiment. But I just think the path to winning the NFC is just not that arduous for the Bucks. I really don't.
I
This
think at
division's
the end
the
of
NFC
the
South
year,
is going to suck this year. Like you go up and down the list. I think the path is very easy for the Bucks to be a top 2 seed in the NFC. And if Brady's healthy, I don't see how they don't find their way into at least the NFC Championship game.
They have the 7th easiest schedule too.
Yeah,
because they didn't do that great last year.
Right. I don't know. We'll see.
And you know how Brady knows how to work the schedule and games.
I mean, they have the Cowboys, Saints, Packers, and Chiefs to start the season out.
Saints, though?
I mean, Jameis played pretty well last year.
Saints are the biggest. I have no idea what to do with the Saints this year. We'll see. The AFC South, though, which I think the AFC South, it's one of those situations I feel like, and Laurie, as an AFC South expert and seeing how this division works every single year, one of the things I've noticed each and every year, and I think this bugs a lot of Titans fans, especially the Titans fans I know in Tennessee, is that everyone's just penciling in the Colts each and every year. It's like the Colts won the AFC South. Colts won the AFC South. This is the year that Chris Ballard's Indianapolis Colts won the AFC South. And it's because everyone likes what Chris Ballard does. Everyone likes the team that they're building each and every year. They're like, oh, this makes sense. Every draft, like I swear he's gotten an A on every draft grade he's done in Indianapolis to this point. And it just hasn't really all come together yet. And then the Titans they're like, yeah, we're just going to be the number 1 overall seed in the AFC last year. And it just feels completely forgettable that they just did that. And I don't know. Like it's clear that Vegas, and we should run through this to start off, is that like Vegas has the Titans and Colts both at 9.5 projected win total, with the Colts as a slight favorite again to win the AFC South. Yep.
I don't understand how, and when you say, these Titan fans are saying, oh, the Colts are, you don't understand it. That's not my perception. My perception is that the Titans are always the team to beat in the AFC South. Like Derrick Henry, and somehow they always pull together with a quarterback. Like even though Ryan Tannehill's like, whatever, he still does a decent job. The Colts, it's always like the Jaguars always have their number. So, I mean, I wouldn't feel that way. Like, and it's wild to me that, like, you hear that and then you just say Vegas has the Colts like that. I mean, I could see it maybe now because of Matt Ryan, but, like, with Carson Wentz, like, there was no fear, like, in my eyes last year.
I mean, your team literally ended the Carson Wentz era in Indianapolis. Like that was it. Like what you did to Carson Wentz in that game and that implosion was it.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't understand that, but it's crazy.
We also have the Jaguars at 6.5, which I think is the most interesting line of the 4, and then the Texans at 4.5. Does that feel about right when you look at this division? That 10-ish wins for the top 2, 6-11, 7-10 maybe for the Jags, and then like 4-13, maybe even just 5-12 at the best for the Texans. Does that feel about right when you're looking at this division?
Kind of. I'm not like super optimistic about the Jags, honestly. Like 6.5 would be great. Coming off of the 2 wins that they had, it's really hard to tell. And as someone who's just like, been following them for a long time, and then I covered them, it's hard to say that they're going to get 7 wins. Like that's really tough. I mean, they do have a decent schedule though. They don't go like back to back with really good teams. Like only twice do they go back to back with like hard games. Now the Titans, they have a harder schedule. They have, I mean, I do think that's accurate. But they're, that they do have a little bit of a harder schedule. 6.5 though, I can't say it's generous. It sounds about right though. It sounds about right. I'm just a little more like on the pessimistic side, maybe.
I think the Jags I'm buying. Like if I go through this, I'm probably taking the over on the Colts, taking the under on the Titans, taking the over on the Jags, and I'm taking the under on the Texans right now.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at those four.
I would agree with
Uh,
that completely. Peterson does bring a whole new vibe.
yes.
Lawrence's second year, their defense looks a lot better. Saxonville may be back. I can go on and on about the positives. It's
Mm.
just like putting that number on like 7 is just it's hard. It's hard for me. But I would agree with all of the over unders that you said.
I'm curious. What do you think, Evan? Of those 4 over-unders, do you disagree with any of them?
I don't. It's not that I disagree with any of them. That said, I'm. We've talked about this before. My best friend is a Titans fan. I have no faith in the Titans as long as Ryan Tannehill is the quarterback. I think every year you get about what you expect from him is like, the Jimmy Garoppolo effect. Decent, but worse actually. Decent regular season and then struggle towards the end. But I have no concept of how to gauge the Jacksonville Jaguars this year. Trevor is Trevor. Trevor Lawrence is supposed to be one of the greatest quarterbacks in the NFL. And I think everyone, football fans all across the world, want to see that happen. Like, I don't know about you guys, but like I want a reclamation project on the Andrew Luck narrative, right? Andrew Luck was supposed to be the greatest thing to ever happen. And then I felt like he never got a shot. He got injured, the Colts, all that. And then he was just gone in a way. And now he's probably playing World of Warcraft. And I would love to see Trevor Lawrence, Trent Baalke be damned, have his chance, have a good runway with a solid roster. And, I love the Trayvon Walker pick if he does pan out because – what better thing to do when you have the number 1 pick and you draft an offensive player the next year? Go defense, right? I hope it works out, but I just don't know how to gauge it because there's so many unknowns. James Robinson, like we talked about, is incredible. He's an exciting player for being an undrafted free agent, but what does Etienne do, right? How do they fit together? If they pan out, if they're a good 1-2 punch, that could be really exciting. If it's a bust pick and like you guys should have drafted a running back there, that can be weird. I see the Jaguars as having a lot of over-the-top potential on smashing that over if things go right. But there's so many variables that it's hard to say whether or not those things will happen. But, Trevor Lawrence seems like a great kid. And I would certainly love to see football Jesus out there slinging it.
But, what if Lawrence makes the leap? That's why it's just when people are worried about Jacksonville, the NFL, this happens so fast. We see this with so many quarterbacks in year 2. Like, this is a thing. We see this in college football, too, with head coaches where they're like, oh, year 2? Is he really going to? Yeah, no, that's what happens. Like, college football, whether or not a coach is going to work after year 2. It's a really, really tough business, but it's very evident very quickly where the program is going after year 2. It's like we're in year 5 and Scott Frost, it's like, still has not won 6 games in Nebraska. And it's like, well, we had a pretty good inclination because every other coach before him had won at least 8 and we're fine. I think something that's interesting with Trevor Lawrence is that like people who are worried if he might be ruined based on what none of that's a real thing. I'm not concerned about any of that. I also just look at they raise the floor, I think is the biggest thing. Like, I am not certain. I think that they're anywhere close to the ceiling. I have questions about. I have questions about how much money they invested in certain guys this offseason. Yeah. But it's enough that it raised the ceiling with Zay Jones and Christian Kirk, where it's like people did not like the numbers involved with some of them or the targets. But you look at it, I've always liked Marvin Jones. And you look at this rotation and you look at it and you're like Marvin Jones, Zay Jones in the slot, and then Christian Kirk out wide. That's a big upgrade to what Trevor Lawrence had last year. And I think about what kind of team they're building. And the other underrated part of it, and you can back me up on this or go against this, Laurie, I'm curious to get your perspective on this, is that the Jacksonville offensive line's good. And they bring back a lot of returning talent. Their biggest question mark is at right tackle, but it's 2 people battling that I think will be fine at that spot, and it's not his blind spot. I think that's important. It's like, this is not a train wreck offensive line for him to be behind. His main targets are all vets out wide. I think the floor just got raised significantly where Trevor is going to have a lot of veterans to turn to and a good offensive line and a great defense this year, with a lot of playmakers all over the place, that I just think the floor got raised so much from that 2-win team to 7, 8, 9, something like that. Like, I would not be surprised if they're flirting with 500, and it gives me some strong name redacted Houston early days with name redacted. That's what they kind of remind me right now.
You also know what it's like to have Matt Ryan, one of the greatest quarterbacks we've seen in this era of football, on a team, and outside of Kyle's magic that he had, Matt Ryan's played on really decent teams, and they couldn't get it done many years. So I mean, if Trevor Lawrence ends up being as good as early years Matt Ryan, like, do you think that's enough to do it?
I mean, I think he's better. I think I'm a huge Trevor Lawrence guy. Like, having watched him just so much in college, Trevor Lawrence winning a national title as a true freshman, and you just go up and down the list. Like, Lawrence is that dude, and I just think he was so boring. That was the thing, is like people moved on because it was like just the obvious number 1 overall pick. It's like, of course Jacksonville takes Trevor Lawrence. Of course you do this. But people got interested in the other options, where it's like, well, yeah, you take Trevor Lawrence. It's okay. Let's not talk about Trevor Lawrence. We know he's the best one. So let's move on to somebody else. And he's just not as interesting because he just got better every year in college, and he never won a Heisman, which is still one of the craziest things. And if you go through this, it's like, oh, well, Joe Burrow had the best college football season of all time my last year at Clemson, so that kind of threw a wrench in things. And you look at that and you're like, Trevor Lawrence I'm a better, like, when I look at that class, the Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, and I think I said this at the time where Evan and you and I were talking about this, was just that, like, I don't see Trevor Lawrence being able to bust. I think he is bust proof. I think there are quarterbacks who just are, and Trevor Lawrence is one of those guys where even if the situation around him is sour, I think he can raise the ceiling enough. And now that you give him Doug Peterson and this offensive line and these veteran receivers and this good defense, I think he raises the floor too much in year 2. I think he's going to have a really good year.
To your point, if just real quick, if he's better than Matt Ryan, you think, I mean, that tier, early Matt Ryan, the only tiers after that were like that S tier, Brady, Manning, right? So, like, yeah, if he's that good, I mean, what are we talking about? Of course.
Yeah. I mean, but I agree with you completely. If he can, like, if he really turns it on with Doug Peterson, I have no problem seeing 8, 9 wins, 100%. And I agree with you with him I don't think he's capable of being a bust.
Yep.
I think let's just say there is no bust really, because he is such a good quarterback. There could be more of like that wave, like, type of quarterback where, like, one game he's outstanding and the next game he's like, man, what happened? The next he comes back and answers with like 5 passing touchdowns, and then the next game again he's like, what happened? Like, that's the only thing that kind of makes me nervous. But like, that doesn't make him a bust either, but honestly, I think Peterson is that perfect piece of the puzzle that was missing to make him great. I see that. I really like the offensive line too. People in Jacksonville don't agree. They think the offensive line is terrible. I don't think a lot of people wanted Cam Robinson to come back as left tackle. I loved him at left tackle. I don't like Jawan Taylor at right tackle. I don't think Walker Little is quite ready yet. But I say, have Jawan Taylor in there, then Walker Little will probably start, maybe the second half of the season when Jawan messes up. That is a little bit of an issue for me because Peterson went to the Super Bowl with the number 1 offensive line. That's why you can play with a terrible quarterback like Carson Wentz, who can run all over the field without getting sacked. Yeah, he worked his magic sometimes. He's really elusive, but they had the best offensive line. Jaguars don't have the best offensive line. So it does make me worry a little bit, the development of the plays, those, the deep overs, that the time that it takes for the receivers to get open. But I think they could be schemed to get open quickly. But it's up to to Lawrence. It's up to Lawrence to make those accurate throws when he needs to make them. So yeah, if he is on point and him and Peterson work their magic, I could definitely see them getting like those 8-9 wins. And the floor kind of puts me at 6. Like 5 would kind of be disappointing. 6 I think would be right on the money though, because it does take a little bit of time for a coach and a roster to kind of get put together. His 2 main targets, Zay Jones and Christian Kirk, are both new to the team. So it does take a little bit of time for them to kind of build a rapport. We saw Christian Kirk kind of line up on the outside, which definitely isn't gonna fit his like skill set. Yeah, he's fast, but does he really like spread the field? I'm not sure. He's not like a 50-50 catcher. So that kind of makes me a little bit nervous. So I do feel like they're still missing that true X wide receiver that is like kind of like what DJ Chark was. Or I think we all kind of wish that what's his name, LaVisca was a little bit better. If he was,
I love Laviska Shenault though. That's my dude. The Colorado Laviska Shenault tape is still it's an all-timer.
It's amazing. Yeah. So like we all kind of just want him to kind of show out a little bit more like to his potential. And I think if he did, it would, even though he's like the 4th wide receiver on the roster, it could still give them, viable options and open that playbook a little bit more. But I definitely agree with you. I don't think, it's possible for Trevor to be a bust because he is that good. He runs around like a gazelle. Like he when he runs the bootleg, they are biting that, and he can always roll out to the outside, like to extend those drives.
He did it all the time at Clemson.
Yeah, and he didn't really do that last year with Urban at all. He was never running
Brian
the ball.
Schottenheimer was not making those calls. That was not the Brian Schottenheimer playbook for him. And it was just they were making him do stuff that it's one of those. He was a classic case last year of like, you drafted this guy who's really good at this thing, and you're like, well, that's not our philosophy. So you're gonna not do the thing that you won a bunch of games, a national championship at, and you're gonna do what we want to do. And it's like, well, then why did you draft Trevor Lawrence? Like, why would you do that? Like, it would be like Kyle Shanahan being like, all right, Trey Lance,
yeah,
what would be, I guess we're running the Josh McDaniels offense, where you're just the quick outs and you're standing in the pocket, you're not moving around. Like, it's just, no, you're going to bootleg all the time with Trey Lance. You're going to push him out in space. Like Russell Wilson, guess what? You're not sitting you're not just sitting in the pocket. Like you're rolling out, you're moving, you're on the run.
But that's also why people are saying that, not that Urban ruined him, but that maybe, they need another year because he's not a rookie, but he wasn't running like a viable offense last year. So not that he has to relearn things, but it may take him and Peterson like finding that magic. Like it may take maybe, the first half of this season. They may like lose a couple games before they really get it together, and then next year they're like, oh man, they're a 12-win team. Like, so that's why like I can't say like 6 would be great. Not great. 7 would be great. I think 6 would be right on the money. Like they've clearly gotten better. If they don't win 6, it might be a little concerning. But then you just have to bring in some free agents. I think key free agents on the offensive line, maybe, one of the tackles. And then, like I said, that key X receiver, like some really big name guy that like really, takes the hat off. I think then it would.
Maybe you sign OBJ in the middle of the year. Maybe that's who you sign if like things are cooking and he's like, I want to go catch some passes from Trevor Lawrence and maybe a wild card run potentially. Like, you never know. I also, and the last thing we'll say on the Jags is for folks like you saw this too, like the last couple of games of the season. I mean, we talked about that Indy game. I mean, he completed 71% of his passes, no picks. You look at the week before, 63%, 66% the week before that. He had a 59.6 completion percentage as a whole. Like that accuracy was an issue. But if you watch him down the stretch last year, I mean, that's how you want to end it. He was not ending the season just the kind of quarterback that we saw early on. I think he was kind of turning the corner at the tail end of last year and figuring some stuff out. and
Without
adjusting.
Urban.
Yeah, without Urban. Exactly. Who would I think it might be a correlation there. Evan, your best friend, Titans guy, when you look at the 9.5 and you look at this Titans team, I think the biggest thing to me is the drop off from AJ Brown, who is shipped out to a team that did not want to pay AJ Brown. And we're like, the new market is just drafting the receivers early. Because of what we've seen from Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson to the world, even Kyle Pitts in Atlanta, and just the immediate impact that wide receivers seem to make now on the league, that they're just like, we'll just draft the next one for cheaper and allocate our resources in different spots. But it's a bold move when you're in win now mode. You don't know how much longer the Derrick Henry freight train express is going to keep going. Like, he was hurt, missed a lot of time last year with the foot issue. No guarantees that he's making it through 17 games ever again, and he's going to be that guy. Like, eventually, as much of a unicorn as Derrick Henry is, and as much of a unicorn as the Tennessee Titans are, is it fair to just assume that this is just going to keep rolling and that they will be able to just move off AJ Brown, everything's fine?
I mean, I think they will be able to move off AJ Brown. Everything's just fine, but only because everything's fine means they win 10 games, 11 games, which I don't think they'll do, but like they win 9 or 10 games, they sneak into the playoffs and they lose. Like the Titans aren't winning meaningful football games in the postseason with Ryan Tannehill. It's not going to happen. And no one wants to admit it, but they can't get rid of the contract. And I think they all kind of accepted that. I don't know that you get rid of AJ Brown if you think you have a real chance to win the Super Bowl. And I think when you watch what happened last year with Tannehill, at least, I know this is like some fans feel this way. Like, we're not going to win with Tannehill, I think is the general consensus. So why not get Treylon Burks and get that rookie contract and get the picks for AJ Brown? Because they got a great deal for it, And like, why not? Why not do that? I don't know. I got to say, I love all the Malik Willis highlights, but they're all of him running. So,
well, he could be running because this team got the offensive line sucked last year. I mean,
they lost Saffold too.
Yeah, they were 26 in sacks. He took 47 sacks a year ago.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I don't really have high upper tier expectations for the Titans. I feel bad for Derrick Henry. I think Derrick's probably looking at AJ Brown right now going, take me with you.
Yeah.
Although I don't know that Derrick would want to go be with another mediocre quarterback in Jalen Hurts, but sorry.
Better vibes though.
Jalen better Hurts vibes, totally. And more potential for sure. Higher ceiling. But I feel like every year we talk about the NFL is who's going to win the Super Bowl. But there are so many, like 80% of the teams are usually stuck in purgatory. And I think the Titans are stuck in purgatory, right? Like they're not going to win with Tannehill, in my opinion. And I just watched Jimmy Garoppolo play football for 4 years, and I saw them get to the NFC Championship. I saw them lose the Super Bowl, and like that was like shooting for the moon with Jimmy. Like to get that far is like shows how good the roster was, how good of a coach Kyle Shanahan is.
I was going to say the coach,
right? And like the Titans don't have that coach, and they certainly don't have that roster. So
yeah, they don't have that amazing defense too.
Right?
Yeah, I think there was a mistake, AJ Brown. But I mean, I feel you like, hey, might as well start over. But yeah, in the end, you just feel bad for Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
The AFC South has just become, let's get a bunch of bulldozers in the backfield and try to run you over. That's basically the AFC South right now in a nutshell.
Here's the crazy thing too about the Vrabel experience. So, what would y'all guess is the least amount of games this man has won in the 4 years he's been at Tennessee?
Who?
Vrabel. Like how many? What's his lowest win total to this point?
9.
That's correct.
Yeah.
9. He's gone 9-7, 9-7, 11-5, 12-5. He's 41-24. Like,
but you're in the AFC South.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, I want to talk myself out of the Titans is what I'm getting at here. Is like, I want to just be like, this is where it ends. And I'm like, is Vrabel like secretly just too good and too good of a motivator and just too good of a CEO type coach that like they just can't bottom out, that this team is just incapable of it?
it's the same as the Steelers, right? Like, yeah, they were winning games, but there was no threat. Like, anybody that plays the Titans in the playoffs this year is probably going to be, especially in the AFC. Like, you think that like the Chiefs or the Broncos or the Chargers are not looking at that Titans team, like maybe limping in with 9 or 10 wins going, please, can I have them in the first round?
I don't know. They're in a weird
Hey, by
spot.
the way, let's talk about the things though. Like, getting Harold Landry back is huge.
Yes.
Harold Landry is one of my favorite players. I wish the Niners drafted him all those years ago. That was a good signing, right? I think Traylon Burks is going to do well in the offense. I don't think that getting rid of Anthony Firsker or whatever matters. Signing Austin Hooper, Chase, just well.
He can play.
He can play well. Too. And they they brought in center Ben Jones. Like, they made some moves. I'm just curious. I don't know that it'll happen, but Tannehill has had some like fans coming for his head style games before. And if he has a couple of those this year, like, does Malik Willis come in? Does he play early?
I don't think it's you had the Steelers thing, and that's kind of who they remind me of. It's like, we know that they're not contenders, but we also just know that their floor, they're just not going away. The Titans are just going to be competent enough to just be in the playoffs every year and just win the division and sneak in and do just enough. But those last like 6 or 7 Ben Roethlisberger years, where you're like, he's not good enough to win a title, but you look around and you're like, they're competent everywhere else, well coached, that sort of thing. The division's kind of weak. I like the defense. They've invested a lot in the secondary. They've invested a lot, obviously, at the pass rusher spot with Bud Dupree and Harold Landry. And you look up and down the list, like, the biggest thing to me, too, is like, Taylor Lewan was not good last year. And if the left tackle spot is still an issue, he's entering year 9? I don't think so. And then Robert Woods as the replacement veteran guy, he's 30. Like, Robert Woods,
off of how many injuries?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can't count on him. And you look past Robert Woods and Treylon Burks, people talk about the Jaguars' depth at wide receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a man named Racy McMath in this.
I don't mind Kyle Phillips though. I think he's pretty good. Dez Fitzpatrick,
Yeah, but I mean, the biggest issue though is that, like, Robert Woods played really well with Sean McVay. And that man is not here on this team,
Yeah, we'll see. The Colts, who I think I think we're all pretty high on. I mean, I'm the highest on the Colts of anyone in this division. I think they're my pick to win this division. They are tied with the Titans with the projected 9.5 wins. My question to you, Laurie, about Indy, though, are we sure the defense is going to be fine? Like, Eberflus is gone now. And he just had that defense humming year over year. You put in Gus Bradley, your old friend. You watched a lot of Gus Bradley Jaguars football. Does he make sense from a scheme perspective? And do you think the Colts defense will be just as dominant that they'll be okay with Matt Ryan and company on offense, and that it'll work out and they won't take a step back on the defensive front?
So I can't tell you entirely 100% for the scheme side. I'm learning more and more about defense every day. I did play linebacker, and I played corner. I played more of like a will. I had, my responsibility was either the slot or picked up the running back on the outside. I was never really a blitzer. And for a corner, I played mostly man. So I don't really know in terms of scheme wise. I know that he likes the fast type of offense. He likes quick players. But I do like a lot of guys that are on their roster. I think their roster on the defensive side is pretty good. Even Julian Blackmon has looked pretty good. Stephon Gilmore, Yannick, and Walkway. Obviously, he was on the Jaguars, and a lot of people were saying to pay him. I think he puts a lot of pressure on the quarterbacks. So. I mean, I don't mind, Kwity Paye, he's good too. So I like their defense. I think they'll be okay, to be honest. And I really like Matt Ryan. Like, I think he's definitely a step up from Carson Wentz, that's for sure.
What do you think, Evan?
Yeah, I mean, like, I have said this on this podcast multiple times, and I understand how deep the AFC is. but like you guys really like no one on earth can like sleep on the Colts. Jonathan Taylor is above and beyond with so many good running backs in the NFL. Jonathan Taylor is aggressively the best running back in the NFL right now. DeForest Buckner is one of the best defensive players, period, in the NFL, and he gets Yannick right next to him. I mean, on top of having, one of the best linebackers, like I don't know, man. It's going to be really. What? By the way, what's the linebacker's new name? What are we calling him now? Shaquille,
yeah.
Shaquille Leonard.
Which is crazy.
It's so funny. I love it. By the way, good for him. But like, that's their defense. Their defense stack. You are right. Kwity Paye is a very exciting player. They're going to have a very good defense this year. And they also just so happen to have Matt Ryan now. Michael Pittman is one of the more underrated wide receivers. People say all the time, one of the more underrated wide receivers. But having Pittman, having Jonathan Taylor, having Matt Ryan, Ryan Kelly is center. We're happy there. I don't know that I think Kiki Kuti coming over from Houston is going to make much of a difference. But yeah, man, I think this team is going to be really good. And I love these storylines. I love Matt Ryan got sent away from the team that he was with since he got drafted. Do we get a Peyton Manning Denver Broncos situation? Like, I don't know. I don't want Chase Thomas to have to watch Matt Ryan win a Super Bowl ring.
Oh no, I would be happy for it. No, I'm a Matt Ryan guy. He's the best. He's the best quarterback for sure in Falcons history. He was done wrong this whole offseason. No, I will stand, and I'm 1000% okay with Matt Ryan getting a ring. If that's what I would emotionally invest in a Matt Ryan playoff run in Indy.
The only thing I will say is this: if the AFC West becomes this just Thunderdome and they just beat each other up for all season long, and the Colts can just kind of quietly slip their way in.
Yeah.
I would like that a lot.
I mean, if we just saw it last year, right? Like the Titans were the number 1 seed in the AFC. The AFC was loaded. People forget, like you couldn't go back through it. Like the AFC was a good conference this past year as well. It's beefed up obviously a little bit more this year with Russell Wilson and company in the AFC. But like, it would not be all that surprising if the Colts were the number 1 seed. And if you are, what history shows us, if you get to that number 1 seed, especially now with the expansion of the playoffs anyway, you could see a path to it, just everything coming together with Indy. I'm a little concerned about the wideouts. Like a lot of pressure is on Alec Pierce. Jack Doyle retired. We'll see if Paris Campbell can ever stay healthy in the slot. Like I like Paris Campbell, but he's got to stay healthy.
I like their 3 tight ends too.
Well, one of them just went down for the year. The one they liked, Ogletree, who was doing some stuff, he tore his ACL this past week. So because you got Jelani Woods, Mo Ali Cox, and then Kylan Granson. They've invested a lot of draft picks in the last couple of years in tight ends. They are Frank Reich likes his tight ends.
Yeah, he does. And he has Nick Foles back.
He does have Nick Foles, and Sam Ehlinger, who's been good in the preseason. So the offensive line, another thing that's good, and Matt Ryan with a clean pocket is a very, very dangerous quarterback. And I would just not be surprised if the Colts took that leap with Matt Ryan, because this is the best quarterback the Colts have had since Andrew Luck. So that'll be fun. And no offense against Philip Rivers, it's just the Philip Rivers that the Colts got is very different than the Philip Rivers.
I think, how many kids did he even have in the time in which he was there? Right? Like,
I mean, that man. I think he's in double digits now in total. I think he's coaching too at the high school level. Yeah. Also, we'll end on this for the Colts. Shaquille Leonard, formerly Darius Leonard. Did y'all see his tweet when he announced it a few weeks back?
No.
It's the nicest.
Oh yeah.
Thing. He is just a delight. Like he said, quote, "I went by Shaquille my whole life, and I understand that it'll be hard change to be called Shaquille after being called Darius for 4 years. It's not a huge deal. And it wouldn't be no hard feelings if you called me Darius. Shaquille is my middle name that I've went by since 95. people just called him Darius, like, I guess when he got to the league, and he just was too polite to correct people, and then just went with it for a couple years, and he's like, I guess I'm good enough to just say I'm actually Shaquille. Like, what?
That's what I do though. Like, my name is Laurie. You know how many people call me Laurie throughout my entire life? Laurie, when it's Laurie. And I don't ever correct anybody because you feel like it's rude.
God bless you, because I would. Everyone, I mean, this is funny. You probably don't know this, but Chase has been butchering my last name, even knowing after all the thousands of times I've corrected him.
That's funny.
He calls it Sowards, and I'll never not be like, that is not how you say my name.
Here's how it works, Laurie, though. This is what happened is when I read, like, you see, like, it's like when you read a book and there are certain words that you've seen so many times, and then you have it in your head that's how it's pronounced, and you've never heard it out loud, but then you hear it out loud and you're like, is that how it's actually pronounced? That was not how I had it in my head in the books or articles or whatever that I read for years. So when I see Evan for years and his handle, Evan Sowards, that's what I always thought. So it's like retraining your brain. It's like, oh, and he said it's actually Swords, and Evan did that, where he didn't tell me that it was Swords for a long time in this podcast, that I was mispronouncing his last name for a while. So just politeness all around.
Yeah, I get it though. I get it. Where he would, he's finally like, you know what, I deserve this.
Right.
So
I like
cool.
it.
Yeah,
he's a good guy.
We'll end on the worst team in the AFC South. I don't think there's a path for the Texans not to be the worst team in the AFC South. Lovie Smith takes over as head coach. Had a pretty good draft. I mean, just thoughts and prayers with John Mechie, who is going to miss this year while dealing with cancer. I believe he has leukemia. So, I mean,
very curable, and I mean, like, good diagnosis early and all that, but not easy.
No, I mean, he's coming off a torn ACL too. Like, he got hurt late in the Alabama season this past year. Like, just rough.
It's important to get it all out of the way, right? Get it away early. And then he's going to have a great, beautiful, loving NFL career.
Right. And I hope so. But it sucks because that was like the one bright spot when I was thinking about the Texans going in this year with Davis Mills. It's like, all right, if you're going to really give him a shot for a 17 game and like, hey, this is your tryout. We're going to see if you can do this. Nico Collins, Brandon Cooks, and John Mechie, you look at that and you're like, that's interesting. That is an interesting trio that has potential. That would be a fun group to watch. Brandon Cooks, not cooked. He was leader in targets for this team last year. They extend him. He's still part of this long-term plan. Just perpetually underrated Brandon Cooks. But I look at this roster outside of it, it's like a lot of people are like, oh, I love Dameon Pierce. Like everybody.
That's what I was going to say. I love him.
Everyone loves Dameon Pierce. Why do you love Dameon Pierce? Explain to me the Dameon Pierce thing.
He was underutilized at Florida. And he's better than what everybody thinks. I'm telling you, AFC South, like outside of the Jaguars having like a guy that just really runs guys over, they are a team that is like, they're like that really big ball in Indiana Jones that's chasing you. Yeah, that's like the AFC South, because Dameon Pierce, Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, they're just three guys that run people over. So I love Dameon Pierce. It's just, I hope the Jaguars will do the best. So I was like just a tiny bit sad that he went to the Texans, but I think he'll do well there, and I think he already won the starting spot. So, and he deserves it in my eyes.
It is sad because it's like, to some respect, when you have Deshaun Watson be the quarterback that he is, and the trash human being that he is, and then leave, you feel bad for the fans, at least, of Houston, right? Because you're like, yeah, man, that sucks. You draft arguably like one of the greatest quarterbacks we've seen in a very long time, and that's like should be like one of the most exciting things ever. And then nothing in good has come since it's happened. And then on top of that, you find out that the organization, the Texans, were complicit in a lot of the things that he got away with. So I feel bad for the fans. If I'm a Texan fan, I'm out.
Same.
I'm out. Find me in the NFC somewhere rooting for something else. I don't know. You probably can't be a Cowboys fan.
It was really weird how it all went down too.
Yeah. But I mean, like
I don't know. He like requested like a trade, and then they benched him because of it, and then like the stuff came out about the massage, and it was just like then you kind of like shot yourselves in the foot, and then you were able to trade him like, and so like it kind of worked out for them at the end. Like they didn't have any accountability towards them, and like they got rid of this cancer, but it was just like how the like I don't know. I just don't think it's fair. Like they should be.
It's not.
They should be held accountable to the organization, like the owners.
Well,
like
I mean,
how do you offer this for him to be doing this in your facility? Like in your facility, it's the first time that an NFL player actually did something on the soil of the NFL,
right.
and they just don't care.
That's the thing that drives me insane. Is like he gets suspended for 11 days or 11 games. We've accepted that his actions are worth suspension, but the team that allowed it to happen on site, sexual assault of women, predator stuff, not the movie, like sexual predator stuff. And they're like,
you could do it here so you don't get in trouble.
You know,
like here's a safe place.
It's like your dad, it's like how the dad would be like, hey, I want you to smoke weed at the house so that you don't get in trouble. All right. It's heroin.
But it's like way, I was just saying, but it's way worse than that.
Yeah. Like it's like black tar heroin. I don't know. The Texans team, the Browns team, I don't mean to be dramatic, but like I want nothing good to happen to those teams. I hope
it's just hard not to be cynical about all of this stuff. It's hard not to become just so cynical about just where things are going, because you look at it and I think this week you saw the Texans value. I think they're in the top 10 in NFL team values, and just they increased value in the last couple of years, and you're just like, there's no real repercussions for that level of wealth, right? Like it's just when you're in that plateau where it's like the Haslams can just negotiate this deal that just all this guaranteed money the following year, bracing for some sort of suspension with Watson and all that kind of stuff, and you're like, that's just how it's going to be. Like they're just going to move past it, and they take a cynical approach to this whole thing where, we're just going to get past it, and we're going to make you get past it, and we're going to make this as uncomfortable as possible, because they're still, if they want to get out and they're like, this is too much for us, they're going to make an even bigger fortune than what they paid to get into this, because NFL team values are going up. Like Cal McNair can just sell this team tomorrow and make just an unreal amount of money.
That would be the best thing.
And that's what I wish. Like when we look at the Stephen Ross situation in Miami, Cal McNair, Dan Snyder, like you look at it, there's so many examples right now in the NFL where you just got to get these guys out of here. You got to get these families out of here. And it's just different rules. And it's so hard to just do that. And you look at it and you're like,
isn't it just depressing? Sad, to your point, Chase, isn't it sad that we're like celebrating 11 game suspension? Like we're like, that feels like a win because it was going to be 6. Like Deshaun Watson should have been suspended for 2 years with 2 years pay taken away from him. Well, $50 million, whatever it was. Like, and the Texans should have lost a first round pick. Like, that's what should have happened. And we're like celebrating 11 games.
You go through it and you're like, it's not even bad. It's like it shouldn't have happened where the contract should not have happened. Like that kind of contract should never have happened. That kind of,
should have been allowed to be traded.
Right. Like that. Exactly. Like just a permanent exempt list where you just look at it and it sucks because it's just not going to go away, and it's just going to move past. And the framing when he's on TV again, and if the Browns do well, it's going to happen where he's going to have like this gross comeback story where it's like he's overcome blah, 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 because he is a top 5 quarterback in this league. And him not playing well and them not doing well is just unlikely. Like it sucks for everybody involved. It sucks. And I don't know. I just don't think there's a positive. I don't want to be super downer here, but I don't think there's a positive with any of this stuff. Like it all really sucks. And I don't really know what else to say about it. Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you say though. It does suck.
And, yeah, well, let's end on this. Laurie, 1 through 4, what would you guess on August 22nd? What is your 1 through 4 guess on how this AFC South unfolds this year?
Oh boy. Man, I hate that. because I just, teams could really just jump up and, they could fluctuate, but I guess I'm going to go Colts. I mean, I think the Jaguars could somehow be better than the Titans. But I'm going to go Colts, Titans, Jaguars, Texans. Just because of Matt Ryan, that's the reason why he's over the Titans, to be honest. Last year it was definitely the Titans Colts for me. But yeah, I just like you said, if Trevor if he goes off and he makes that leap, then I think they could the NFC South, AFC South could be up for grabs. So
I am very curious to see if that's the case. Evan, you're 1 through 4 with this division.
The exact same.
Oh, okay. So who are the playoff teams for you guys? Is it just one playoff team from the AFC South?
The AFC, there's only one. Only one team is coming out. It's going to be crowded in the AFC West with all 3 teams going. So
we'll see. I could see 3 teams in the AFC North too. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case as well. I'll end on this. I'll say 1 Colts, and I think they fight for number 1 overall seed in the AFC as a whole. Wouldn't be surprised with the number 1 seed. I'll say number 2, number 3, somewhere around there. And then I'm going to go Jags 2. I think the Jags win 9 games, 8 or 9 games. And then I'm going to say the Titans injuries and the Ryan Tannehill regression, not having AJ Brown, Derrick Henry not being healthy for a full year. I'm going to say this is the downturn and this goes awry for them. And the Texans, I think, are actually worse than 4.5. I think I'm going to take the under there, like 3 or 4. Yeah. I think this is going to be an awful football team this year. Laurie, what can the good folks check out from you all across the internet this week?
So on the Touchdown Wire at USA Today, I'm writing something right now. Kenyon Drake, he is being let go from the Raiders. I also may do something on Pickett and Trubisky with the Steelers after that film. Pickett's kind of going off. So yeah, definitely those couple things this week. But all throughout the NFL, I mean, all throughout the season, I'll be right on every single team in the NFL. I love suggestions from people. So, hey, hit me up on Twitter, shoot me a follow, read my stuff, like it, share. And yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter at Laurie Fitzpatrick.
There you go. Evan, what about you, my friend? 49ers Hub.
Yeah, well, the 49ers Hub website, apparently those in charge let the domain go. So
never good.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm lazy. The website will probably be up one of these days, but I don't care. Follow me on Twitter. Follow the Chase Thomas podcast. Follow Laurie Fitzpatrick, the correct pronunciation.
Yes.
And give my man Chase a 5-star review or else. Mm-hmm. And then shout out to my dog Milo, because he has been a good boy for the majority of the podcast.
You know what's funny about that is you said that, like, I don't know if y'all can hear it, but Khaleesi the Keyshawn is now banging on the door. She's losing it. She's like, this has been enough of a podcast. It's time to play tug. All right, Laurie, Evan, thank you as always.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great week, guys.
You too.
Thanks.